What is happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again by my dad, Sean. And today on Reactions to the Classics, we're going to be taking a look at David Bowie's classic album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. And just like all our other reviews, this is the first time we've ever heard this record in full. And if this is your first time stopping by the channel, y'all, we appreciate it. Here, Reactions to the Classics, we take a look back at some of the most classic records of all time, do a detailed track-by-track review of them, listen to the record about 10 times to get a good feel for it, and give you guys the best reviews possible. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And if you'd like to link up with us further, we have our Facebook group linked down below, as well as our Patreon if you'd like to support us and get some perks yourself. And let's dive into some quick facts.
Well, Trey, this is his fifth studio album, released in June of 1972. It's number 35 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 albums of all time. Peaked at number 5 in the UK, number 75 in the US, and covers topics such as rock music in general, political issues, drug use, of course sexual orientation, and stardom. And the Spiders from Mars is of course his backing band of Mick Ronson, Trevor Bolder, and Mike Woodsman. And this thing was recorded at Trident Studios, just like its predecessor, Hunky Dory, which we did a review of and I quite enjoyed. And what happened is they go back in the studio after Hunky Dory because the Spiders from Mars, the backing band, told David, look, man, we can't really play most of these songs from Hunky Dory very well live. They're just not great live songs. But they knew this material was, so they went back, kind of tied it up, put a few more songs in there.
And the concept of this is a loose, almost rock opera type thing about Ziggy Stardust, who's a bisexual alien rock superstar. It was actually not conceived as a concept album, and much of the story was written after the album was recorded. Bowie had started to develop his androgynous appearance in his live act.
Ziggy was based on several things according to Bowie through the years, but the main influence was a guy named Vince Taylor, who's a British rock and roll star, who went crazy and actually thought he was a cross between a god and an alien, so we can kind of see how David got here. But it was also based on a few other things. A guy named Kanze Yamamoto, who actually designed a lot of Ziggy's costumes on the tour, and also another guy named Stardust Cowboy. Those are just a few of the influences that went into Bowie making this Ziggy character.
Yeah, and the concept of the album is about Ziggy Stardust. He comes down, sees Earth, like the first track, 5 years. The Earth only has 5 years left before it's going to be destroyed. So Ziggy wants to come and save it as the rock and roll messiah. He wins the hearts of teens, scares some parents, and eventually his ego gets really inflated. It has tension with the band members. According to Bowie, he ends up dying a victim of his own fame, and he takes himself up to the incredible spiritual heights, but is kept alive by his disciples, and that comes to a head in rock and roll suicide. Ziggy's calling out to people to keep going on. You're not alone. And so that's kind of the background and what to keep in mind as you listen to this record.
Yeah, and on that, it takes us right into the first track, which is going to set the table you just talked about. It's called 5 Years, opens up with a minimalistic kind of drum, and it sets the tone of the album that you just outlined, Trey. It's finding out there's 5 years left of the earth and what happens after that, the aftermath of knowing there's only 5 years left. And Bowie later on said he came up with the 5-year number because he had a dream where he was visited from his dead father and told him that he only had 5 years to live and to never fly again. So, I don't know. This song is tremendous.
Oh, what a fantastic opener. Bowie's vocal performance is fantastic. The imagery was great. I could visualize everything Bowie was saying in his mind. There's some people going crazy. There's other people that are just chilling, having a milkshake. They don't even know that they're in the song. It just shows how the reaction might actually be if the world was
exactly
that there's 5 years left. So tremendous opener. That leads us into Soul Love, a pop jazz type of orchestration, yes. And Bowie actually plays the alto saxophone.
He does, and you can hear it in there. He does quite a good job on that.
Yeah, I was impressed.
This is not one of my favorite tracks on here at all.
Yeah, this wasn't mine either. It falls in between two of my favorite tracks on the entire record. So
yes.
It is a little bit more forgettable for me, but I mean, it's still a solid track, but a lot of stuff on this record is just, so high. This one just
I would agree with that. It's fine. I don't hate it or anything,
yeah.
But compared to the other stuff, it's all right. I'll take us right into MOONAGE, Daydreams, and this is one of two songs on here that was first released under another side project of Bowie called Arnold Corns. Neither of those songs did anything, so they re-recorded it for this album. And it tells the story of an alien messiah that revisits the 5-year theme. The alien messiah comes, and his destiny is to save the world from the impending disaster, which was described in 5 years. In the story arc of this album, this song is very important and an excellent song.
Oh, I totally agree with you. It describes Ziggy as a combination of religion, sexual orientation, rebellion, a bunch of different themes that surround the Ziggy Stardust character. I just think this was a standout on side A, which the whole side was pretty fantastic, but this one really stuck out in my mind. And then that takes us to a tremendous track, Starman.
This is a very late addition to the album. It actually replaced a Chuck Berry cover, Round and Round, because RCA, the record company that David was signed with at the time, heard the album. It didn't have Starman on it, said there's no single here. So let me go bang this thing out, which to me it's the best song on the album. It obviously has the theme of Ziggy Stardust now because the album was basically done, so he saw the theme, so he wrote it from that aspect. But starts out with an acoustic, got some string arrangement by Mick Ronson, which this song reminds you that it could have just been on Hunky Dory, even though it wasn't written during that time.
Yeah, exactly, and it tells the story and the concept of Ziggy's communicating with the people through the radio. Some teens hear it. They say, "Hey, did you hear the news?" And I just think that was an interesting thing, that he kind of sparked some hope, some intrigue with the people, and more specifically the teens on the earth. And this was one of the songs that really helped put him on the map.
Yes.
Because he performed this at the Top of the Pops in 1972. It was one of the songs in his set there, and that helped propel it up the charts. Close side A out with It Ain't Easy. This was a cover originally written by Ron Davies, and it is a almost rock apocalypse type vibe to it. There's quieter verses before we go into the chorus, which is very triumphant. We have backing vocals and a great guitar work by Ronson here. I love the power. It really just takes you, especially if you're listening on headphones. We go through the quieter verses, and then boom, it just comes in. It ain't easy. You kind of think you're getting ready for something epic to happen.
Yeah, I agree with all that. It's the only song on this album that David did not write. So just as a quick aside, I always respect when the artist is the songwriter. It's double respect out there when he's able to pop that off. And he actually did take this song and change some of the lyrics to it to make it fit the concept. But it sounds terrific, and the changes he made were absolutely appropriate and didn't mess with the integrity of the original by David. Well, we're going to start off the B-side with Lady Stardust. It's generally thought of as a tribute or alluding to Mark Bolan of T-Rex. The original title was actually He Was All Right, a song from Mark. Has a moderate tempo. Trey, this thing starts out, and we've done a recent review of Elton John's Honky Chateau. I thought it was Elton for the first 1 minute. The piano, David's voice on this song. Really good song, nice tempo shifts in here, a little haunting at times.
And this song, in more than any of the other ones, plays into that androgynous theme. He talks about the femme fatales who just love Ziggy up there, but also the boys stand up on their chairs, and but they can't go to him, obviously, because the love is forbidden. So an interesting theme there, especially for 72. Very good chorus, and he was all right. Solid vocal performance on this track.
Now we get to Star, which in the theme of the album, Ziggy's figuring out that maybe the best way to save the world, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is to be a rock and roll star. And this chorus just stuck in my head.
Yeah, he thinks the best way to make an impact, he sees other people trying to make a change, but rock and roll stars will be able to make a big impact.
Heavy influence, man.
Exactly, and it's kind of funny because he thinks that it'll help him be able to sleep at night, which, if you're a rock star, you're usually not going to be sleeping at night too much because it brings a whole host of other problems. So an interesting aspect there, and another solid track. Hang On to Yourself is next. This was the other single that he released with Arnold Carnes along with MOONAGE Dream. This has a almost proto-punk vibe to it, fast-paced, what you would hear a handful of years later on the Ramones' debut record.
And they mentioned the heavy influence this particular song had on that.
One of the faster songs on the record. I enjoyed it. Side B, it kind of falls to the background for me, but it still was unique, and I like the faster tempo.
Yeah, Mick really stands out on the guitar here, and I agree with you. It kind of falls in the background on side B, but only because side B is so outstanding, but a very solid offering. Now we're to the song Ziggy Stardust, told from the point of view now Ziggy's becoming famous. The Spiders from Mars start to have some animosity here because all of a sudden that lead singer separates himself, which is the story of rock and roll, guys, right? And so you have this animosity, and it just kind of shows the climax of his just star, no pun intended, just going to the stratosphere.
And it describes him. He plays left-handed guitar, a little eccentric. He is, good looking, and people just flock to him. He tries to placate the Spiders from Mars by telling them, oh yeah, you guys are good, but they end up figuring out he's probably just telling us.
Yeah, he's not suffering from being too humble or anything.
This was maybe my second favorite song. It's tough to
tough.
order them, but this is one that really stuck in my head, especially once we get rocking with the chorus about a minute and a half in. It just really hits you like a freight train. So one of my favorites here. Next up, we get to Suffragette City. This is almost based off a Little Richard piano riff, very fast-paced, and just a more rocker, almost like Hang On To Yourself was. And here he's being seduced by this woman, and he starts squeezing out his friend in his life and other people in his life just because he's infatuated by her. And you get the famous line, wham bam, thank you ma'am.
Yes, very famous line. That's what this song is known for. This song for me is fine. It's middle of the road. It's a rocker. It kind of gets you going, but it's tough because of where it's aligned in the album.
I'd agree with that, and I will note, because you were mentioning Elton a little earlier, that I was impressed with the piano throughout the entire record. That was something I didn't necessarily expect, but I mean, we saw it on Life on Mars, of course, but he showed different styles going faster or different speeds and whatnot.
And he gets overshadowed. It's a great point as a musician, Bowie does, because of obviously the stage persona and the different characters, but he was a quite accomplished musician in his own right.
And that'll take us to the closing track, Rock and Roll Suicide. And here it's an acoustic number, and it brings the story of Ziggy Stardust to a close. As I mentioned earlier, here, though it's not explicitly stated in the lyrics, Bowie himself said in the 70s and later on that this is where Ziggy dies. He ends up getting torn apart from the extraterrestrial beings. But even if you don't want to read into it as the culmination of the concept, I think it works as a song of great hope, especially for people dealing with tough things. It tells them to not judge themselves too hard. This is a message of hope from Ziggy, I think, to his fans and Bowie's fans himself. So I thought it was a perfect way to end this record out, and my favorite track.
I liked it a lot. I think it was number 4 for me on my favorite tracks, but I like this album a lot, which brings us to our favorite songs. For me, it's Starman, 5 Years, Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah, I'd back all those up along with Rock and Roll Suicide and a MOONAGE Dream, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great song too.
There was some great stuff on here. And to our overall score of the record, for me, this was a step up from Hunky Dory.
Agreed.
Even though I enjoyed that record. What an interesting topic, too, and concept. For me, I'm going to be at a solid 9.25 on this. I really enjoyed this record. One of the better records we've listened to in the past few months of reviewing.
I've listened to this thing a ton, and the grade just keeps going up and up and up. So for me, it's a 9.0. I listened to it twice today, and I've listened to it a ton of times. When I put on my headphones this morning, I'm like, yeah, man, it's like an old friend. Whenever an album feels like an old friend, it's in the upper 8s or somewhere in the 9 level. Like, oh yeah, this is comfortable. I really, really enjoy this. It brings a smile to my face when I hear it.
Let us know what you think of Ziggy Stardust down below. Let us know what your favorite track was. Dad, thanks for the research. Always fun, especially with these concepts.
Interesting, yes, yeah. Really interesting.
Be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We upload twice a week in a variety of genres. And until next time, y'all, happy listening, my friends. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.